All right, it was a pretty good response to the last video. I'm going to stick with this style for a little while longer. We'll see. Just try to get some reps in on being on camera, as awkward as it is. In this video, what we're going to do is take a look at the Brittany Sykes trade from Washington to the Storm as well. We'll take brief looks on the games that took place on Tuesday and Wednesday, just little nuggets I took from some of those games and compare some of the teams on where they're at. And then the last thing we'll do is sort of guess who might be traded. This video will be outdated in terms of that probably by the time it comes out, I would suggest. If you hear screaming in the background, it's my kids. I'm sorry, I can't do much about it. I'm in a 3-bedroom with 5 kids and 3 little kids while I am renovating my house. So please don't panic if you hear screaming. Nobody is being killed as far as I am aware. All right, let's get into this. And if you like the content, please give it a like. It'd be much appreciated if you find it worthy. Okay, let's go. Dallas, New York. New York won the game 85-76 the other day. I thought Dallas put up a pretty good fight. Mieseman's starting to ramp up her minutes. New York's loaded with talent. To be able to bring in a Mieseman to sign her, quite handy, obviously, as Stewie's out with her pulled muscle. And the other thing that really stands out to me on that one is just how good Leonie Fibich is, because she is their secret sauce. She's long. I think she's like 6'3", 6'4". But I noticed early in the game, like, she was guarding Paige Beckers and handling her fine. With her length, it makes it really tough on the guards, and they can put her on guards for short stints because she moves really, really well. Eventually, they put Cloud on her. And early on in the game, I think there was one point where Paige got in transition on somebody else, like a small, I think it was Cloud or somebody, and straight away Paige Beckers was attacking and said, yeah, this is my chance to get to the basket on this other player. So I just continue to say, I know I sound like a broken record probably, but she is, if you look at her net rating, she is plus 9.5, and a lot of that is her defense. New York gives up 96.3 points per 100 when she's on the court. When she's off the court, they give up 105.7. I can't help but think when they face off against Minnesota, they're just going to be able to bring bodies after bodies at Nafisa Collier. So they'll start off with Stewie on Collier probably. I doubt they'll put John Qual Jones on her. I think it'll be John Qual Jones beating on Alana Smith, and they'll be physical on each other. But the option to put Mieseman potentially on Nafisa Collier, or go Liana Fibich, who might be able to handle her step throughs and things like that a little bit better because she's more mobile. I could see a nice little combination there of Leona Fibich and Stewie taking on Collier, and then just banging away on Alana Smith with Mieseman and with John Qual Jones. The other thing I found interesting, I know some people, Cheryl Reeve, like, she comes across as the smartest person in the room, and that irritates a lot of people. I have no doubt. But in truth, I think she probably is the smartest person in the room. She was asked about Emma Mieseman signing with New York, and she was like, she chose the wrong team. That's what she thought of it, and I loved it. I loved her sort of putting it out there, willing to be arrogant about it, and yeah, more of that I'm fine with. A coach doubling down on that, I think it's great. Only other news from that game, with Dallas, Paige Beckers pulled a muscle in her back. She's day to day. I think overall, like, all of these rookies are basically walking on their elbows at this point. They've got about 14 games left. They've had a long college season straight into it, much like Clark was last year, and I just think all the rookies are starting to hit the wall come August. I just think it's really, really tough. The next game was Chicago, who beat the Washington Mystics. I call this one the waving the white flag game, because prior to the game, the Mystics traded Brittany Sykes to Seattle. They got back Zia Cook, who they immediately cut as well. Alicia Clark, who's looking a bit washed. I think that's to make the salaries work. And basically, Washington got back Seattle's #1 pick. which currently would be around number 10 because of how good their record is. It makes first, that trade makes sense for every team. Like Seattle's looking to make a move in the playoffs, and they don't have a bench, so that's why they did it. I'll get more into that later, but with Washington as well, Sykes was in the last year of her contract. Why keep her? I thought last year, I thought Washington made a mistake because they had a chance to tank and have a better shot at Paige Beckers or a high pick. And Tebow, both the Tebows, the GM dad and the coaching son, they decided that it was important to try to win as many games as possible. And because of that, they didn't wind up getting the number one pick. Now, you might say karma, they still did really well because they landed Kiki Ariafin, which was a great pick in hindsight as well. With Citron, that was a fantastic pickup because obviously they traded Ariel Atkins to Chicago. Now, Chicago was better in this game because Atkins was back, and that gives them offensive punch. But it must be, I've criticized Chicago before. In hindsight, that's a terrible trade. You're a rebuilding team. You had a chance to get Citron, which is a building block. You don't know if you can get Atkins back. I just think that was a terrible move. And even though they got the win, if I was a Chicago fan, I'd still be looking at it going, man, I can't believe that we made that trade. And Citron's numbers are going down. Same thing with Ari FN. But again, I think the rookies are just hitting the wall. I think both of those players are going to be solid players for years to come. And I think they're playing it smart and saying, hey, if we get more losses, fall out of the playoff race. So currently, I think they are sitting. Where are they in the playoff race right now? So currently, they are 10th. So they're out of the playoffs in the lottery, and I think they will continue to go down. And as they do that, I don't think they're worried about that at all. Okay, let's go ahead and tank, see where we wind up, and we can get potentially AZ Fudd would be a nice look in their lineup, or maybe Lauren Betts as well, a big to put along Kiki Ariafin. I think either one of those they would be happy with. And it seems like I'm always picking on Chicago. Jeff Pagliacca, it seems like I'm always going after him. But I put it to you. If you had a choice between being the Mystics and what they have on their roster and draft capital versus Chicago, which one would you choose? I would choose the Mystics, in my opinion. If I was Chicago, I said this before, I would have kept my 3 pick. Hopefully, the draft is a lottery, but hopefully I would have drafted Citron. The other thing I would have done, I just would have kept, I would have kept Kennedy Carter because I don't own my draft pick this year because that's going to Minnesota. And I just would have tried to win as many games with Witherspoon and Kennedy Carter and just be a fun team to watch. I just don't think Chicago this year has been a real fun team to watch as they get blown out quite frequently. It might have been a madhouse with Witherspoon, and Kennedy Carter might have been a handful, but they played hard. They took it to other teams, and I think they were a better watch last year, in my opinion. Now, come at me, Chicago fans. Am I right? Am I wrong? Everybody's allowed to have their opinions, but that's my overall take on that. Now, of course, the playoff races are heating up, but another race, the Tankathon race, is always good to watch. If you're not aware of it, you should be going to a website, Tankathon, WNBA, and they track the records of the teams and where they're sitting in the lottery. It's a really good website, and I like looking at it because there's a lot of intrigue there. So if we look at the current status right now, so Dallas has the number 1 odds. So their winning percentage over the 2 years is 24%. Then next is Chicago with their winning percentage 30% over the 2 years. Now, as I mentioned before, Chicago's pick goes to Minnesota for the Angel Reese trade. So it's amazing. Minnesota might wind up with a very, very high pick based on Chicago's record. And that's why I think Chicago is definitely motivated to win as many games as they can, because they would not like Minnesota getting the number 1 or number 2 pick and taking AZ Fudd, as it's just a really bad look. But you would still say, I think with Chicago, they would stand by taking the Angel Reese swapping that pick for Angel Reese because that's been the face of their franchise and has given fans hope. And everybody has their opinion on Angel Reese, but you can't deny her presence there has energized the franchise. Number three, currently sitting number three, is LA, which that pick actually goes to Seattle. So they're sitting number three with 17% odds. So Minnesota currently has 25% odds, and Dallas has 40% odds. So Dallas at number one, 40% odds of winning the lottery. Minnesota, 25%. LA, which is third, their pick goes to Seattle due to the Kia Nurse trade and giving up, I can't remember, I think it was around the number four pick, which I think they used to take Rakia Jackson. So due to that trade, Seattle owns their pick, and currently that's number three, and that has 17% odds, and their winning percentage is 30%. Now, LA is just on the cusp of being in the playoffs. I'll talk about them in a little bit. I'm not sure if they're going to be able to climb out of the lottery or not. It's going to be very close. And then holding the fourth is Washington, which I mentioned before. They currently are fourth with 11% odds of the number one pick. Their winning percentage is 39%. And I think the new regime, like I said, the Tebows got fired for not willing to tank. I think they are going to embrace the tank this year, and I expect their winning percentage to take a dive as the season goes along. By the way, the other one, sorry, there's one more in the lottery. It's the Connecticut Sun, who Chicago owns the Connecticut Sun pick. And you would say, oh my God, Connecticut's lousy this year. And they are, but their win percentage is 48%. And that's based on how good they were last year. And it's going to be a fun little race because much like how Chicago doesn't want to be bad and see the Lynx get the number one pick, I think it's the same way or same deal with the Sun that are desperate to win enough games to make sure to keep Chicago with 7% odds. Are they going to be able to do that or not? That's just the other race besides the playoff race that at least I'm going to keep my eye on because I'm interested in it. Now, the next game was Indiana Fever versus the LA Sparks. The Sparks got all over them and won 100-91. If you watch this game, I was sort of glancing at it. There was not a lot of defense. Stephanie White sort of mentioned that in her post game, saying that they just did not play very good defense. She sort of took just saying we need to play better than that to get us in our transition game. We were constantly taking the ball out of the basket, but both ways the defense was not great. Indiana is obviously trying to tread water while Caitlin Clark is out, and it's with Caitlin Clark. The good news with her, I guess, on all the updates, they said it's nothing more major. I read that for code that they don't think it's a sports hernia because she's had a lot of groin issues, obviously, and it's been on different sides, and it's been a little bit weird, the injuries that she's had. And I was like, ooh, is it sports hernia type thing because it's shifting from side to side? But it appears not. But I think they're being very, very careful because if she does it again, then that's really going to take her out for the rest of the year. So I think they want to make sure that she's really ready, make sure she's having reps in practice. I think they did that in one of the sideline interviews. They're going to get her practice time and really make sure that she's ramped up in practice prior to getting her in the games. I think that's fine. And they've withstood her absence really, really well. Now, on the LA side of things, it was a good win, and they're making their move. So currently they are sitting ninth, and they are just behind Golden State. So LA is 13-15, and Golden State is the 8th seed with a 14-14 record. At the time of the recording, Golden State's just lost to the Las Vegas Aces. And this is sort of fun because these two teams are polar opposites. So the LA Sparks get it done on offense, and the Valkyrie, they get it done. They throw rocks at the basket, but they play defense, and the numbers reflect that. So the Valkyries, on defense, they give up 100.5 points on defense, which is 5th best in the league, 5th lowest to give up. On offense, they only score 99.9 points per 100, which is 10th. And then you look at the LA on offense, they score 105.2, which is 5th best in the league. And they're having a heater this month as well, by the way. LA. Small sample, but they're scoring 112.6 this month, so they are very hot. And then on defense, though, they give up too many points, and that's 107.9 per 100 possession, which is 11th out of 13th in the league. So I guess these two teams will answer the eternal question: what wins championships, offense or defense? Well, I guess what gets you to the playoffs, offense or defense? I tend to think LA will. I think the loss of Thornton's going to be too much for the Valkyrie to overcome, but it's going to be a fun race to watch. Is they both play their own styles. LA on defense, just a few other stats for you, just real quick. As I mentioned, their defensive rating is 107.9, which is 11th. Field goal percentage by opponents. Opponents shoot 45% against them, which is 10th. And 3-point shooting percentage, 34%, which is 10th as well. So, yeah, I mean, it sort of makes sense. It's Captain Obvious. Opponents shoot well from the floor in 3, then you're going to give up a lot of points. They brought in Latricia Trammell, I guess, as a consultant to tighten up their defense. She's a defensive expert, I guess, although you wouldn't have known that at Dallas. But then again, is it really fair to judge her on Dallas? If you have Arike Agumawale and Tiara McCowan, how much of a defensive guru can you be? I think she was sabotaged a bit, at least in that scenario, by Greg Bibb. So it'll be interesting to see if she's able to get or help Lynn Roberts tighten up the defense a bit. Now the next game was Connecticut Sun versus the Phoenix Mercury. Mercury got back on track. They won 82-66. The Connecticut Sun, they're a slump buster for other teams, basically. The big news, obviously, coming from this game, Satu Sabally was back. She played 28 minutes, scored 23 points on 9 of 12 shooting. Her plus minus was 18. This is a team you can put up stats on. Where are the Mercury at? I like Nate Tibbetts. I think he's a straight shooter, and I think he'll be able to handle this situation well. But then I'm not in behind the scenes and knowing what's going on with this team. And it'll be interesting. The real truth will come out after the playoffs. If you get straight away, like Sabally going to Instagram to announce, thank you for your time, Phoenix. I look forward to the future somewhere else, or something like that. Then the drama was real, and the relationship was damaged beyond repair. So at this point, they're playing happy campers, which is good. And Phoenix is very intriguing. Bonner played well in this game. Like I said, the Sun are a great slump buster. So Bonner, she played 23 minutes, went 18 points, 7 rebounds, and was +4. So on paper, they look good if you put all their parts together, in terms of you've got Thomas, Sabally, Copper, and then Akoa McConney as well at the point, and Natasha Mack as well. And then you have Bonner and Sammy Whitkin off the bench, as well as Westbelt. Like, this team has, not Maddie, her sister, it's Catherine Westbelt, not Maddie. But yeah, they have all the parts. Will it come together? How will it look? That's the $1,000,000 question. I'm looking forward to seeing it once the playoffs start. Now, the last game was the Las Vegas Aces versus the Golden State Valkyrie. I wasn't able to watch this. I don't have a lot to say about it. The Aces, I'm curious to see what the Aces do against the better teams, and we'll see that as the end of the season plays out, because I still think they have a problem at the 4 and matching up to teams that have a good 4 and 5, and I think it'll reveal itself. I think they can take the lesser teams like Golden State if they play up to their potential, but that's when they come against Phoenix or Minnesota or New York, I think that's where they're going to struggle. But to be determined. One more game, obviously, that I need to talk about is Minnesota versus Seattle. So Minnesota went to Seattle and got the win. That's a bad loss for Seattle. That will lead into the trade talk. But Seattle needs to win that home game if they don't have Nafisa Collier. And that's the thing. In Seattle, you think they're those tight games, and they just don't seem to be able to close. And a big win for Minnesota. I guess when you look at Seattle, their problem is, and it's not rocket science, is they just don't have much of a bench, and hence why the lack of bench is why they've traded for Sykes, and you can look at it in the numbers. The numbers are there. So they're starting five plays well, and their numbers are good. So Skylar Diggins Smith, she's plus 24 if you're looking at plus minus on net rating over 100 possessions, right? Gabby Williams is 25.2. Erica Wheeler even is 10.4. Nikkei Gumake is 14.4. And Izzy Magdabor, she's plus 7.2. And then after that, you go to the bench. Not surprisingly, it falls off a cliff. So Alicia Clark is minus 12.6, hence why she was traded. And Dominique Malonga is minus 16.6. I know she's putting up numbers, but she's still a rookie. They struggle on defense, and that's why her numbers on off in terms of net rating just aren't there quite yet. With Sykes, that's gonna be, that'll give him a little bit more of a bench. I'm curious to see what they do, if they keep the starting lineup as is with Wheeler in the starting lineup, or if they move Wheeler to the bench and Sykes into the starting lineup. And if they don't have any injuries, they might be able to get away with a 6-player rotation using Malangala as required. That's the potential. Sykes, in terms of her, she averages 15 points per game, 3.4 rebounds, 4.4 assists, and that's the good news. The bad news is she's not really efficient. Like, she averages, her shooting from the floor is 39%, 3-point percentage 31%. She takes 2.6 3-point attempts per game. But I like Sykes. Like, usually I only go for efficient players, but Brittany Sykes she's a pro's pro in my opinion. She's had 2 ACL recons that she had repaired in college. I thought that I became a fan of hers when she was with the LA Sparks. Like, that team was a dumpster fire at the end of Derek Fisher's regime, and you had Kennedy Carter there, and I saw a press conference where Kennedy was there, and she went out of her way to defend Kennedy. She's like, y'all need to back off. Kennedy's here every day showing up and doing the work, which is less that can be said. And she didn't call out Liz Cambage by name, but sort of pointed that Cambage had already left and quit on the team, and Carter was trying to make the best of it. And I thought, that's a good teammate. And overall, she came to Australia, worked on her game, and has improved. And I just think that's the type of player you want on that team. And I do think you sort of need to be a strong pro to be in Seattle, because I think that's a tough locker room. Like, you need to be sure of yourself to be around Skylar Diggin, because she doesn't suffer any fools. And I'm curious to see what happened between her and Jewel Lloyd, or if it was between her and Jewel Lloyd, or who it was anyway. But yeah, I think you need, if they were going to trade for anybody, I think you need a pro's pro, and I think that's what they're going to get in Sykes, and that will give their bench a chance. Are they going to be in that upper echelon? I think a lot of that will determined by injuries and matchups. It's an interesting thing right now if you look at it. In terms of the playoffs ended today, so it would be Minnesota versus Golden State. That's a 1v8. 2 versus 7 would be New York, Las Vegas. Yeah, I don't know if I'm really excited about New York and Vegas going at it again. 4-5, though, is very tasty. 4-5, currently as it sits, I'd love it to stay the same, would be Phoenix at the 4, Indiana at the 5. That would be a fun series, because you'd have AT and Bonner and Caitlin Clark hopefully healthy, and there would be a lot of fight in that. And then 3-6 would be Atlanta and Seattle, and I haven't talked about Atlanta, but they're an interesting team, which I'll get in more in other videos with how Semeska has refurbished their offense and how they're getting so much out of Gray now. So anyway, yeah, it'd be interesting. The other one that was early in the season, it looked like for a while that Seattle and Vegas might match up, but unfortunately they've both gone too far in the standings. But if that was a 4-5, I'd like to see that one as well, because Jewel Lloyd and the Seattle Storm, they have no love for each other. So yeah, I would have been happy to see that one again as well. Now, lastly, in terms of trade, what more is to come? I don't know. By the time I get up, I'm sure I'll have messages telling me what's happened. But anyway, will Marina Mabrey be traded from the Sun? You think it has to happen? Mabrey always gets traded at the deadline, and she wanted out of there. You would hope that the Sun would move her on. I guess it'll depend if anybody has space for her and what they want to do. I've been hearing a lot of noise about Aaliyah Edwards. I'm not sure if that one's going to happen. If I was Washington, I would keep her around almost as an insurance policy because of injuries. She's on a rookie contract for 5 years, and she has another 3 years at a low number. Why not bring her back and see if she develops more, and it's an insurance policy, but maybe they can get value for her, to be determined. So those are the two that sort of looking for. I don't think Edwards will be traded. I think Mabry will. I don't know where Mabry will go. The other one, I wonder, and I haven't looked at the cap ramifications, but can Cheryl Reeve get another big body? I'm sure she's looking for one. Um, but I don't know if they have the cap space and flexibility to do it. So anyway, that's sort of what I'll be looking at for the upcoming ones. And then the games tomorrow. What do we have tomorrow? The Dream versus the Sky. Atlanta is minus 8.5. If I'm putting my money down, and you shouldn't, and don't follow my advice as well, bet against me. That's my advice to you. Yeah, I'd put my money on Atlanta to cover the 8.5. The Sun are at the Sparks. LA is minus 10.5. Yeah, I'd put my money on LA. And then Fever at the Mercury. Mercury are favored minus 4.5. Yeah, I would take the Mercury. I think they'll beat up on the Fever pretty good. I think the Fever are going to feel it towards the end of the road trip. Or will this be the game that we further expose the rifts in the Phoenix Mercury? To be determined, but yeah, I'll put my money and believe in the Mercury. We'll see how we go. By the way, usually when I bet, or I don't usually bet, but when I predict the Sky are going to lose, they win. So maybe you do want to put your money on the Sky and bet against Back to Sports. Anyway, thanks for watching. If you've made it this far, unbelievable. Put down the number 33 if you made it this far. I doubt anybody's gone this far in the video, but if you have, I do appreciate it. Your comments, your feedback. Do you like this style? Or, am I drolling on too long? Whatever. As painful as it may be, I'm quite happy to have your feedback and your comments. Thanks again for watching. Have a great night.